James Traficant, guys, we're strained for time, so we're just going to let him go. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Where's Paul? I want you to pay attention. The trouble is everybody goes to these events and everybody talks and gets excited. They leave and nothing happens. I want you to pay attention. I painted this for you, Paul, for you and your missus. I raised horses for years, and I think you do a great job. Follow what he does.
Yeah.
And I want to give you my best. God bless you. Take that for you and Carl. We don't have a lot of time. Take a photograph. And it'll be in a post office. The IRS will be after everybody. They're probably out in the parking lot writing down your license plate numbers right now. Where did Karen go? Did she leave?
She's right here.
I agree with what you said, but quite frankly, Karen, are you listening? Are you listening? Don't ever mention your opponent's name. Make them pay for it. And they're not about liberty down there. They're about money. And all this liberty talk, my message is a little bit different. We have gravitated from socialism to communism. America is a managed debt economy nation characterized by a communist foundation now. Most people don't know what communism is. We're the biggest socialist country in the world. We redistribute more wealth than any country in history. We're the #1 socialist nation in the world. What makes a nation considered to be communist is the government controls production. America now controls production through a communist income tax. If they don't want you to do something, they'll tax you hard. If they want you to do something, they'll give you a tax break. They bailed out the banks. Did the banks ever bail out anybody?
No.
They bailed out all the big industry, and they manipulate the variables at their disposal to control activity. Today, I want you to consider the words of Karl Marx. He said, if you want to make a nation a communist nation, you must install a graduated progressive income tax. Folks, that's what you have. You've had it since 1913. You've had the IRS and the Federal Reserve since 1913.
What a year. I
made a speech about 5 months ago down in Florida. It's a Project Freedom Law School. And when I was done, they said, Jim, we have all these meetings, everybody talks, but we'd like to take your idea national. Since then has been created Project Freedom USA. www.projectfreedomusa.org. The official kickoff is July 18th and 19th in Washington. But just let me explain it. One of my last bills in Congress was to eliminate all income taxes, abolish the Internal Revenue Service, and create a flat 15% national retail sales tax with a rebate on the bottom for the poor people up to the poverty level. But there'd be no more withholding, no more tax on savings, no more tax on investment, no more capital gains tax, no more corporation tax, no more tax on Medicare, no more tax on Social Security, no more taxes. Everybody would pay a flat 15% on the purchase of all new goods or services. Now, before you panic, listen very carefully. Harvard did a study and said this income tax code carries a 20 to 25% compliance cost. Every item you buy, every item that's manufactured, costs a company up to 25% of their costs to comply with this tax code. They said when you throw this tax code out, there would probably be no increase in prices as you have now. Project Freedom USA is simply designed to get the American people to tell these jackasses in Washington, we're tired of this communist country. This communist oppressive tax code that rewards dependency, penalizes achievement, subsidizes illegitimacy, kills our jobs, chases our companies overseas. And if you're not listening to this, you will when you lose your home. Because the other plank of the Communist Party was, there shall be a central bank, and then nobody will own property. Now I want to talk to you about your property. For those of you who own property, I guarantee you, if you've owned it for more than 20 years, you now pay more in taxes than what you paid on your mortgage. You rent your property from the government. You do not have an allodial title. You have a custodial property. You miss those payments, you're going to lose your property. Central bank, we're a superpower. We're the greatest superpower, they say, in all the world. How big of a superpower are we when private international bankers control and handle our money? I was in Congress all those years listening to audit the Fed, review the Fed. Are you kidding me? You audit the Fed, they're going to come back and say it's the best thing since sliced bread. It has its problems. We got to do this. We got to do this. Folks, the Constitution is clear. It says Congress shall coin the money, establish the value thereof. Project Freedom USA says the contract with the Federal Reserve is ended, the money supply is placed back under Congress, and it shall issue debt-free money, and we shall repudiate the debt owed in interest to these international bankers. Period. I want you to get involved with it. We already have directors in 5 states. And let me tell you why we're moving now. When I went to Congress in 1985, one of my first bills was that when you went to a tax trial, you were guilty and had to prove yourself innocent. All the politicians in Washington say, get out of here, Traficant. If it's a criminal case, the IRS has the burden of proof. That's true. But the IRS, 96% of tax trials was civil law. And under civil law, you had the burden of proof. Here's how it worked. You owe us $50,000. Like hell. Prove it. Prove it. Now you have the dinner. Family of 5, mother and father. And Martha says, John, I don't want to bring it up in front of the kids, but I'm scared to death. We better call our accountant. We better call our attorney. Martha, we don't owe that money. I'm not paying that damn money. John, I'm afraid. I talked with Ralph. He says he thinks he could settle this. $10,000, maybe $15,000. Martha, not in front of the kids. John, I'm afraid. Invariably, they settled the case. The trafficking bill said, look, when the IRS comes to audit you, you have to provide your documentation for the forms you've submitted. But if the IRS is not satisfied and the IRS litigates, as soon as the IRS takes that litigative action, the burden of proof changes from the taxpayer to the Internal Revenue Service, and they have to prove it in court. I almost got in a damn fist fight with Chairman Dan Rostenkowski from Illinois. He said, I'm not going to mess with that trafficking. I said, who the hell are you, king? The Republicans took control in 1994. In 1998, they came with a reform bill. They have all these reform bills. The new chairman, Bill Archer from Texas, called me and said, Jim, I love your burden of proof, but the IRS has recommended a veto to President Clinton if we include the trafficking burden of proof bill. He says, I'll try and take it up next year, Jim. I said, Chairman, let me tell you something. This reform isn't going to do very much. I'll vote for it. It's a feel-good bill. But I said, as long as the American people are guilty and have to prove themselves innocent, and they keep parading them through court, you're not helping the American people. Well, the bill came to the floor. I said on the House floor, it's a feel-good bill. I'm going to vote for it. It's not going to do a damn thing. So you had the bill pass in the House. You had another bill pass in the Senate. I got a call a couple nights later, and I want you to listen to this. Chairman Archer said, Jim, we've been overwhelmed by phone calls and messages. They don't want this bill. They want the trafficking burden of proof in that bill. He said, I'm going to put it in conference. Now, conference committee, when the House has a bill, the Senate has a bill. If they're not totally exactly alike, it goes to a conference committee to work out the differences. Chairman Archer put the trafficking burden of proof and foreclosure language in that bill. Now the IRS recommended a veto to Clinton. It come back to the House, both bodies. The conference report was passed. It now has the trafficking burden of proof in it, and they cannot seize your property anymore without going through due process and you having the right to contest it in court. I did an interview with Bob Novak, the conservative commentator. He said, I'm with you, but the IRS has recommended a veto. I said, who the hell are they? They don't call Clinton Slick Willie for nothing. He can veto the bill and help the IRS, or he could sign this bill and help the American people. Well, I get a call from the Wall Street Journal, and they do a debate with me and the acting IRS commissioner. And the bottom line, what she said was, we'd have to be more aggressive. We'd have to do a lifestyle, net worth. We'd have to go to their neighbors, go to the bank. I said, why? Why don't you go to the church? See if they made, she cited, imagine that a person says they give $1,000 a week to the church. We're going to have to do these big investigations. And why don't you go to the church and ask them if it's real? And then she said it. She said, Mr. Traficant, how can the Internal Revenue Service prove a negative? I said, my God, woman. Negative. If the IRS is accusing a taxpayer in court, they should have enough justification to carry their legislative and carry their litigative language through in court. President Clinton signed the bill. At the end of the first year under the new bill, they did a comparative study. 12-month snapshot before the bill, when the taxpayer had the burden of proof. 12 months after, when it shifted to the IRS. First category, wage garnishments. When the taxpayer had to prove it in court, 3.1 million Americans had their wages garnished. When the burden shifted to the Internal Revenue Service, it dropped to 560,000, almost 3 million less. Second category is property liens, and if you ever had your property with a lien on it, it's finished. Taxpayer had approved it, 677,000 property liens. The IRS had approved it, 161,000. Half a million less. But the big one that astounded everybody was individual family-owned homes seized by the Internal Revenue Service. When the taxpayer had the burden, 10,073. When it shifted to the IRS, folks, 57 homes in 50 states. Those bastards have been taking properties from the American people, treating the American people like criminals with a tax code. If you lie on it, you vow you break the law. It's a criminal offense. Wage garnishments, confiscation, seizures, prison time over a damn tax system, a communist tax system. Project Freedom developed because Jim Traficant didn't pass the burden of proof. It wasn't in the bill. The American people that followed me all those years said, we want it. And that's what Project Freedom is. We want to throw this tax code the hell out. We'll take a 15% national retail sales tax, no exemptions, with a rebate for those people, the bottom of the ladder, up to the poverty level. For example, family of 4, poverty level 24.5. They would get a check for $300 a month to pay for their basic necessities. But there are no exemptions, no lobbyists, no more court cases, no more withholding. Now, let me just make one point. For those of you who own property, you write a check twice a year, usually. If you had to do that for your income tax, there'd be a revolution overnight. I spoke in Ohio about 4 months ago, and a woman came up to me after and he said, Jim, what's the big issue? She said, I got money back. I said, I'll tell you what. And she was an executive. I said, I'll tell you what. If you agree to meet with me and you bring your W-2 statement for the year, I'd like to talk to you about it. And she did. Now I want you to listen to this. She made $121,000. She put $23,000 in a 401k account, and she says, I don't pay taxes on that. Until she uses it. They took out $25,200 in withholding. Withholding of income tax, withholding of contributions to Medicare and Social Security. Her net pay, adjusted pay, was about $94,000. She got $200 back. She said, I didn't pay, I got money back. Because people don't realize. She paid $25,200. The government withheld $25,000 of her pay. They use it in Afghanistan, Iraq, and every damn little issue they want. If that woman had to write a check for $25,000, she'd be leading the revolt. She didn't even know she paid $25,000. I got $200 back. Beam me up.
Oh boy.
I said, how much is your monthly activity in consumption, spending? Maybe $5,000. So here's a woman, let's say, spends $60,000. Her tax liability would be $9,000. Very simple. The millionaire spends $1 million, he's going to pay $150,000 in taxes. There are no loopholes. Those companies that have left America, they're going to run back home. You know why? No more corporation tax, you pay it anyway. No more capital gains tax. What is capital gains? How do you get a job if someone doesn't invest money? Why'd these companies leave? If their competition moved to Mexico, they'll go bankrupt if they don't go. Now you have the #1 tax haven in the world. Those corporations will come back. They don't want their daughter or wife abducted and kidnapped in Central America. They don't want China to maybe nationalize their plant. They'd love to come home. We're not friendly. But there's one last thing. You hear all these politicians talk about the fiscal cliff. Where's the fiscal cliff now? Where's this big crisis? They had a super committee and they couldn't come to an agreement. They didn't want to get voted out of office. So now they have a 10-year balanced budget plan. When I started in 1985, they had a 5-year balanced budget plan. In 1990, it became a 7-year balanced budget. Now they want a 10-year balanced budget. What's that mean? Continue to deficit spend, borrow money from international bankers, and then pay interest on it. Think about what I'm telling you here. And the reason why I'm telling you this now, these people are right. They can be had. These IRS scandals, we can get this done. American people got to rise up and say we want it. We don't want any more bullshit. We're tired. Now there's a bill in Congress that calls for a 23% tax. It doesn't do anything with the Fed. They say trafficking 15% won't cover all our government costs. That's right. It won't. Not your government, but we're tired of paying for that big fat government. This is the government we can't afford. Reduce the size of that government, because that's what we're going to pay. That's what the American people got to come up with now. But let me say one last thing now. If you buy more than you sell, you go bankrupt, don't you? Now I'm going to say that again. This isn't rocket science. If you buy more than you sell, you're going to go bankrupt. I don't give a damn if you're this restaurant, or you're a family of 4, or you're a government. Now let's talk basic economics. Right now under this communist tax code, let's say that Chevrolet Cruze made up where I live, let's say it cost $20,000 to build, so it'd be simple. $5,000 of the cost of that car is General Motors' cost compliance with the tax code. The Harvard study said when you remove that tax code, you're going to take a 25% cost factor off that car. Now here's that $20,000 car shipped overseas, getting hit over the head, is not doing anything. And those cars coming from overseas are coming in here scot-free. Folks, I'm talking about the first non-protectionist border-adjusted tariff tax in American history, and they can't cry protectionism. Here's how it works. That Cruze is not sold in America. It's exported at $15,000. It's a hell of a lot more competitive. That car coming in, subject to that 15% is our new car. They'll move their companies over here. They won't be shipping cars.
Yeah.
You'll have American companies coming home in a damn heartbeat. They'll be hiring people, not the government. When we're friendly for capital investment and corporations. I got a call from people who said, Jim, these corporations are a big problem. Why do you want to let these corporations off the hook? Again, this isn't rocket science. Do you really think a corporation is going to pay that tax? They have several choices. They could reduce the shareholders' money because their profits will be less. They could lay off employees, or they could raise prices if it doesn't endanger their market share. And if their competitor moved overseas, goodbye, Charlie. They're out of here. America could become the #1 tax haven. With that money supply returned to Congress, issuing debt-free money, we'll take off. We'll take off. By the way, purchase of any used item, used home, used car, no tax. Just new goods and services. How you doing, Junior? By the way, there's one other thing. If there's a national dividend, it's your money. First of all, everybody get about a 25% raise. You won't be paying into Social Security and Medicare no more. They won't be withholding your pay. You'll decide what to do with your own money. But I want to talk about history. Karen talked about a few things. If you think the American Revolution, now we're here at Freedompalooza, if you think the American Revolution was about some tea party in the Boston Harbor, you're sadly mistaken. Jim Conduit and I, one of my associates, we find it amazing that the history books talk to us about a tea party, taxation without representation. But do you really think that tax on tea started a revolutionary war? If you believe in the words of Ben Franklin, and I think Ben Franklin was very reliable, listen what Ben Franklin wrote. He said, we were doing so great in the colonies. No debt, full employment. All of us were bragging about it. And the English bankers found out. And he said the English bankers went to the Parliament in England and they lobbied Parliament to pass a law forbidding the colonies to use and issue their own money and forcing the colonies to use the money from the Bank of England. Bingo, there's your revolution, folks. You won't read it in any damn book. You won't read that in any book. That's Ben Franklin. He literally said, if you believe it was started over some tax on tea, that's really funny. But that's what happened. And the bankers come in, one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto, we shall, to make a nation communist, install a graduated progressive income tax, create a central bank, and take away the individual's right to own property. We're there. And let me tell you the danger we have now. Almost half this country pays no income tax. That meter's running to a point where there may not be enough votes to ever change this communist system. We have established entities now in 5 states. By the spring, we want an establishment in all 50 states. We want a director for each state. We want coordinators in every major area. We want speaking engagements. We want to educate the American people. We want to start going towards the talk shows. Don't trust Washington a bit. Washington's main concern is getting reelected. That's why that super committee to work out the fiscal cliff, why didn't they do something? They were afraid that if they had to make those tough decisions, they'd get voted out. So they'd rather let the country denigrate into massive debt. Now, let's talk about the realities. Everyone in here, you woke up years ago and you heard a newscast. There were no shots fired. There were no student protests. No CIA warning. You just heard on the news, by the way, there's no more Soviet Union. You know the big evil empire that almost bankrupted us. In this arms race, they went first. There wasn't a shot fired. When you look at these political screens on television, red and blue states, people are getting tired of sending their money to Washington. See that money go to LA, New York, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit. They're tired of paying all these damn taxes. And if you believe they're going to reform the tax code, 73,000 pages, they're not going to reform it. And every election, what do you hear? We got to raise strategic targeted revenue only and reduce spending. How many times are you going to hear that? And Romney tried to mention it. I wrote an article in the American Free Press and I advise you to subscribe. You could follow what we do. American Free Press. I wrote a column that said 53% of American eligible pay income tax. 47% do not. He made it in a speech. If you recall, after the first debate, it looked like Romney was going to be elected. The second debate, President Obama looked him in the eye and he said, "You only paid 14% in taxes, and you say 47% don't pay taxes." Now, I've been around Washington enough to know how elections work. They get Obama in one room, Romney in their own little room. They get about 15 people around and bombard them with questions and help them with the answers. They even get somebody to sit in and play the role of the opponent. Romney was not prepared for it. And Romney wasn't sharp enough on his feet, quite frankly. He was apologizing for his wealth. And you know what he had to say? One of the few Democrats in history to be targeted by the Democrats. If he'd have said, "Mr. President, are you accusing me of violating the tax law? Mr. President, can I have your attention? Are you saying I violated tax law, sir?" Because you see, Mr. President, the Democrats controlled Congress for 50 straight years and wrote every one of those damn laws. And after the election was over, they went in the back room and gave their personal friends tax breaks. And as a good businessman, I just availed myself of the tax law. And when I'm elected, I'm going to change it. But he wasn't smart enough on his feet, quite frankly. And his advisors were so dumb they could have thrown themselves at the ground and missed. There's a lot of people don't want this change. They want it just the way they are. They want more welfare. They want more. And our country's going to collapse. Everyone's got to pull their load. I'm going to put in a plug for my book, America's Last Minute Man. I'm the congressman that brought back John Demjanjuk from Israel, had a target on my back. Man was convicted of mass murder, and I brought him home from Israel, so you figure it out. The information I got came right from the Justice Department. They knew he wasn't Ivan. They're going to let him die. No one in Congress would look at it. It was too sensitive. I said on the House floor, since when does sensitivity waive the Bill of Rights? Boy, they had a bullseye on my back. But I'd make these little 1-minute speeches, and I'm going to close with 2 little incidents. Because unfortunately, the American people may not necessarily listen to substantive issues. Once during a debate on foreign aid in the House floor, I referred to the members of Congress as a bunch of political prostitutes. So help me God, they jumped up like 100 wounded TV evangelists, demanding that my caustic remarks be removed from the record for all eternity. One of the old chairmen said to me, "You better apologize. Man, you're making enemies." So I decided to apologize. Here's what I said. To all the members of the House of Representatives who were in fact offended
by my remarks, referring to you as a bunch of political prostitutes. I apologize. And to all the members of the House of Representatives who were not offended by my remarks and referring to you as a bunch of political prostitutes, I commend. And then they got the hell out of there. What the hell did he say? That. So I got outside, and this little TV radio crew put a stringer up under me, and this was used every 15 minutes in the metropolitan area. It was used on the Carson show. It was used all over the nation, PBS. They said, tell us what you really feel, Sheriff. I said, I want to apologize to all the hookers in America for having associated them with the United States House of Representatives. But the last one was, they finally put me in prison. You can figure that out with no evidence. They're going to pay for that yet. They reprinted a speech I made about Lorena Bobbitt. I was in prison for 3 years already. It was faxed around the world like the Gettysburg Address. People start writing to me and giving me topics. I'll be done in a minute, Jimmy. And my staff says, I can't believe it. People want to know when you're going to speak about Lorena. In 17 years I was there, I only did one rhyme, one limerick. I woke up with an idea. And I went to the floor, and when I did, they were coming out of the woodwork, man. The place stopped dead. I said, there once was a woman from Manassas who got tired of all the hassles, claiming she'd been raped by her spouse in her very own house. Went to the kitchen to get a knife, fully prepared to take her husband's life, but realized to cut off his painless. Now I said painless, but the reporter of record was so mesmerized, she wrote penis in the congressional record, and I left it in there. I said, now Mr. Speaker, I don't know if this man plays the piano, but from here on out, he'll sing like a soprano. But if he really, really did rape his wife, maybe, just maybe, he deserved that knife. I said, I yield back any body parts still outstanding. The place went crazy. They printed that speech in so many places. Even more than the speech I made in March of 1993, that you could find in many books now. It started the assault on the Federal Reserve. It's called The Bankruptcy of the United States of America by Congressman James A. Traficant, Jr. of Ohio. We're bankrupt. We don't need to be. I want you to grab Jim Conduit before we leave. For those of you who want to play a part, you don't have to kill yourself. Develop your website, send out information on Project Freedom USA. You can go to website projectfreedomusa.org. I'd like for you to subscribe to the American Free Press. You'll follow what we're doing. We have our kickoff 18th and 19th in Washington. Paul Tapetti will be there. He'll be a guest speaker. And we are going to lay out the program. We will also be taking some legal actions against the government that I believe are actionable. So with that, I want to thank you for having me here. I'd appreciate if you would get involved. Jim Conduit is over here to your left, to my right. He's got his hands up. He looks disgusting. And that's him. He's a great guy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank
Okay, thank you very much. I have 15 minutes, but I only need 15 minutes. I'm talking about how we turn this country around. In reality, something that's simple, something that millions of people can do. We now have our national leader. Jim Traficant called me a little bit before May 4th, and he said he was going to lead Project Freedom USA. If there is a better speaker in the United States than the man you just heard, Jim Traficant, I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear who it would be. So we have a national leader who's effective in person, on the YouTube, on camera, and when he is interviewed. So we have a national leader now. And he didn't only talk the talk, he walked the walk. Most of you know he was sent 7 years to jail for nothing, because he stood up for the American people, right? And they gave him a thing 2 years in saying, if you sign this, we'll pardon you, but say you're guilty. He had to sign something that said he was guilty. Now, what would you do if you had 5 years of jail ahead of you, and all they did was want you to sign something saying you were guilty when you weren't? I hope I would do the right thing, but I think all of us would have to get there to be sure to know that we would do the right thing. We know what this man did. We know what Jim Traficant did. He said, no, I will not sign I'm guilty when I'm not, and he served his 5 years. So he not only talked the talk, he also walked the walk. So we have the national leader. If there's any immediate action for everyone to do here, or anyone watching on the video, go to projectfreedomusa.org and sign up for the email list so we can keep in touch with you. That's projectfreedomusa.org, and sign up for the email list so we can keep in touch with you. Soon, hopefully by July 19th, when there's a big kickoff for Project Freedom USA in Washington, D.C. And for the rest of my talk here now, I'm not speaking for Project Freedom USA. I'm talking about what I've been working on for 25 years to try to help mobilize the country. But a magic website's going up soon. I call it magic. It's going to be a networking website. All the people involved with putting it up agree that it's going to tell people, when you sign up here, you're going to be signing up with Project Freedom USA and Jim Traficant. And what that website does, and this is the key thing, you sign up by state, county, and zip code. Don't fall asleep on me here. This is how we take back the country. You sign up by state, party, and zip code, and then we help all the people in the 3,000 counties start organizing. We don't have our own network. The Democrats and Republicans have their own network, but they're serving the Fed and Goldman Sachs and the IMF. They're not serving the American people. So we're going to get our own network up. And then if Jim Traficant goes to speak for Project Freedom USA, we have 1,000 people in the area to email to. And if we have to, if we find that those in office and are not responsive, then the American system is they have to be replaced. That's where the precinct system comes in. As I say, I'm speaking now for myself, even though I want you to sign up at projectfreedomusa.org website or see me afterwards. The precinct system, again, this puts people to sleep. If I could be pumping a needle of adrenaline on all of you to keep you awake now, I would, because I know this puts people to sleep. A precinct is like a little country. It's 10 or 15 streets around your house. That's a precinct. Every 2 years, you elect a Democrat and Republican precinct executive. A month after that, it's in May, the May primary, let's say. In June, all those precinct executives from your county, my county's Hamilton County, meet and elect the heads of the county party. That's where we're losing the country. The patriots don't even know that meeting's taken place. They don't even know they can get 5 signatures and spend 10 hours and maybe get elected to precinct. This is what all the Tea Party, all the Ron Paul supporters, NRA, you name it, should do. If everybody did this, we could, within 6 months to a year, be challenging the establishment all over the country. There would be emergency meetings in London, Washington, D.C., and New York to say, now the American people understand how they can affect the country. Because why can we affect the country then? If you get all these millions of patriots running for precinct, there's only 300,000 little precincts. The precincts make the counties make the states. Then we elect new party leaders that would be at home at this meeting. Then we send new men to Congress. And then we change the laws. Then we end the IRS, divorce the Fed, like Project Freedom USA says, and we do a lot of other good things. That's the way we take back the country. How fast can this spread? By the way, in Boone County, Kentucky, 20 miles south of me in Cincinnati, patriots who would be at home at this meeting have taken over that county. They just did it in December of last year, behind a guy named Rick Brueggemann, who's a great constitutionalist and friend of Judge Napolitano. They know the Constitution. They know what the dark forces were fighting. Boone County, Kentucky. Right near me, adjacent to my county, Warren County and Claremont County, the Tea Party took over in May, 1 month ago. So all 3,000 counties need to do what those three did, but the Tea Party has to wake up and get behind the Project Freedom USA agenda and that type of agenda. Tea Party has allowed themselves to become adjuncts of the bad Republican Party. I call the Democrats the Democrats, but the Republicans are almost as bad, or you could say worse, because they act like they're for the Constitution. How fast can this spread? Facebook, email, telephones, conference calls, free conference calls that now can hold up to 1,000 people on a call. This can spread fast. You can get Facebook, you can find 15 million people in a few weeks if you get the right message. So how fast can this spread? Very fast. We use Facebook, we use email, we use websites, we use freeconferencecall.com and the normal telephone one-on-one. We can reach millions of people with the message they need to hear in a very short time. Not available before. The internet wasn't really to age until 2003. These social networks, 2008. Freeconferencecall.com, where you can get 1,000 people on one phone call, just recently, the last 4 or 5 years. So we've never had as good an opportunity as we have now to organize the people, throw out the forces of darkness and put in the forces of light. Never had this good. And I hear people saying, we can't do anything. We can't do it. They're driving around to good restaurants. They're putting money in their bank accounts. They're watching the TV, the Duck Brothers or whatever they're called. Okay, can they spend 40 hours a year doing this program that we're talking about? Yeah, but no, maybe they don't know what to do, or maybe it's out of their comfort zone to do it. But we're free still. Nobody's arresting me when I drive around to these Patriot meetings. And I know they put some people in jail illegally, like Edgar Steele and Jim Traficant, but in general, we're still free. This can be done. And our website should be our TV stations. I don't want to be joined at the hip with everything but Alex Jones, but Alex Jones' website gets way more hits than NBC, CBS, and ABC. Way more hits. So our websites are now our TV station. Another thing that's new in you might say, United States history. Okay, I'm going to close now with 3 quick things. One is, when you put in good county party leaders, and the reason I talk about somebody say, why are you talking about the Democrats and Republicans? They're so bad. I hate them. I hate what they say. I hate what they stand for. How about I hate what they stand for worse than you hate what they stand for? But they control every county. They control these secret computer counts, which I'm about to mention for just a second here. So we have to dislodge the Democrat and Republican leadership. They're bad. They're serving Goldman Sachs and the Fed. They've been put in every county, except for half of New Hampshire. Secret computer counts run from New York City every election. Do they fix all elections? I doubt it, but I think they fix almost all the key ones, and they can fix all the key ones if they're paying attention. And when you put a good Democrat and Republican Party leader in, they can open up the process for third parties, and then the Republican Party would disappear. The Republican Party is not going to disappear as long as they're counting the votes in secret. So, but the county leaders of the Democrat and Republican Party can put in an honest hand-count paper ballot vote system and throw the computers out. Computers are great, but not for counting elections. 2 more things quickly. Funding for Project Freedom USA. I want to see 3,000 to 10,000 people donate $10 a month from now till December 2016. My fundraisers always say, if you can't afford to donate anything, we understand. A lot of people are hurting. A lot of people just be going in debt another $10. Don't do it then. Pray that we reach the right people. But out of all the Ron Paul people, all of the NRA people, all the pro-lifers, all the patriots all over the country, there's at least 3,000 to 10,000 that can donate $10 a month if they believe in the program. That's what we're going to be shooting for. So we don't need billions of dollars. We're fighting billions of dollars. We don't need billions of dollars, but we need some money in any movement to make it happen. And finally, I have run for Congress under the Reasonable Access Law, which forces the radio and TV stations, FCC license, all the big ones, to run your ads. And I put ads on the air that are totally politically incorrect. One of them was so bad in 2007 that the Federal Election Commission with the WLS radio station in Chicago illegally shut down my last two days of ads. Out of 4 days. That's how effective the ad was. The ad started out like this. The best thing we can do for Homeland Security is arrest the head of Homeland Security. And then it got worse. Michael Chertoff is part of the Zionist lobby whose agents in America caused 9/11 to get us into a police state and to get us in war for 50 years overseas. So they didn't like that. The radio station said their phone was ringing off the hook, pro and con. Point is, you can get any message you want. I would like to see people get on the ballot for Congress and run all over the country and put ads on. Like, for instance, in October of this year, if people put up a website, collect some money, in 1 week we could have every media market in the country saying, Jim Traficant's back, Project Freedom USA is going to lead us, and everybody go to this new Magic Network site and sign up, and we'll start organizing and get rid of the forces of darkness that are running our government, so many of the banks, and so much of the world. So anyway, that's the action program. At the risk of sounding like I might think I have a big head, but I'm telling you folks, I've looked at this for 25 to 30 years. If you don't understand this, rewatch this video. This is the action program, and outside of either converting the people in Congress or picking up arms for the Second American Revolution, this precinct system is the only way to peacefully and constitutionally take back the country. And that's what I've been trying to do for 30 years, and you've all been doing. And let me say that because this event has a lot of enemies. We're still peacefully and constitutionally trying to take back the country. Thomas Jefferson said the tree of liberty has to be watered by the blood of tyrants every few decades. He said that. I didn't say that, but he did say that. But we're still trying to take back the country peacefully and constitutionally. Thank God for Jim Traficant. We now have a national leader. Let's have an effective action program behind him to win and take back this country. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jim.